Place your phones on silent. It is my pleasure to formally introduce our guest for this evening. Phylicia Rashad is a versatile performer who became a household name when she portrayed Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show, a character whose appeal has earned her numerous honors and awards for over 2 decades. Currently, she has a recurring role as Diana Dubois on the popular Fox TV series Empire. And she will be featured in Terrell Alvin McCraney's David Makes Man. That's a new series on the OWN network. We've also seen her on This Is Us. She played Lala's mama in Drake's video. And when you go, leave.
Yeah, don't forget to leave.
Oh, that's okay. Yes, I love that.
Don't forget to leave when you go.
Awesome. While television was a catalyst in the rise of Rashad's career, she also has been a force on the stage, appearing both on and off Broadway, often in projects that showcase her musical talents, such as Jelly's Last Jam, Dreamgirls, and The Wiz. In 2016, Ms. Rashad was inducted into the Theater Hall of Fame. And Ms. Rashad received both the Drama Desk and the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Play for her riveting performance as Lena Younger in the Broadway revival of Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun. She appeared in Ryan Coogler's Creed, Tyler Perry's Good Deeds, and starred in Perry's highly acclaimed version of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. Respected in the academic world, Rashad is the first recipient of the Denzel Washington Chair in Theater at Fordham University. She received an honorary doctorate from Spelman College, where First Lady Michelle Obama delivered the 2011 commencement address. Ms. Rashad has received numerous awards and honors. She also serves on a number of prestigious boards. Phylicia Rashad graduated magna cum laude from Howard University and is the mother of 2 adult children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Phylicia Rashad.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We are so excited again.
Okay, so now we're going to dispense with formalities and have a conversation.
Yes, we're having a conversation.
We're all together in this living room.
That's right. That's right. We are having a conversation.
All right.
You are the epitome of grace, of glamour, of beauty, of class.
Okay.
Yes. I want us to go through the evolution of Phylicia Rashad. We're going to start from when you was little. We're going to go all the way up to now. I want everybody to leave out of here inspired. We know that you are all those things, but we also know that you're human. We know that you have things that you want to share with us that are real. And you're magical too, all of that all at the same time. But I want to start off, let's just go back with your life as a young girl. Let's start there. I knew you grew up in Houston, Texas. Is that where you originally are from?
I was born in Houston, Texas on June 19th, 1948 in the Houston Negro Hospital.
Oh, wow. Houston Negro Hospital.
In the Houston Negro Hospital, which later became the Riverside Hospital, which now I understand does not exist.
Wow.
I grew up in a time of legal segregation, and I felt that my life was very full, and I did not feel deprived in any way because I grew up in a community like this. with people who were educated and who saw to the education of young people in the community. It was a time when children walked the streets freely. It was that time.
Wow.
Ran all over the neighborhood.
Right.
Walked far on Halloween nights. Nothing ever happened to us.
Right.
It was a different time. And I'm very grateful to have grown up in that time. My mother, Vivian Ayers, is a poet, a scholar, a cultural arts activist, and community programmer, and she was from the mill town of Chester, South Carolina.
Okay.
She was a graduate of Brainerd Institute, one of the schools founded by the Presbytery for the descendants of freed Africans.
Wow.
Was founded
Wow.
shortly after, it was during Reconstruction.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
Well, actually, early 1900s, yeah. And my father, Dr. Andrew A. Allen, was a dentist.
Yes.
And my father was born on the back porch of a farm in Lobdell, Louisiana. He was one of 10 children, 9 of whom survived. He was a graduate of St. Augustine College, his undergraduate years, and then he graduated from Howard University's School of Dentistry.
Wow.
And my parents met in Washington, D.C., and were introduced to one another by one of my father's classmates who knew my mother from childhood.
Wow.
My mother was standing in line, waiting to get a ticket in the theater, and they walked up there together, and he said, "Vivian." And he introduced my parents, and that was that.
That's all she wrote. That's awesome. So you have some amazing siblings.
Yep.
Now, a lot of us know Debbie, but you have other siblings as well.
I have
Can
two.
you
I have
yes,
two
you have two brothers.
My oldest brother, Tex Allen, we call him Tex
Tex.
because that was my father's nickname.
Okay.
My oldest brother is a musician and composer.
Awesome.
Yep. He conducted the Houston Symphony Orchestra at the age of 11.
Wow. Wow.
And my youngest brother, Hugh, well, Hugh is amazing. Hugh is district manager for a number of branches of TD Bank.
Wow.
He is a graduate of University of Texas and then Duke University for his MBA.
Wow. So did you have sibling rivalry in the house? Because you all are amazingly talented. So what was it like growing up? We're still little now. We're still little kids in the house. How was that? And what was your expectations of your parents for you all in the household?
Oh, child, expectations. I was so busy climbing trees, throwing mud pies. What did I know about expectations? We had a lot of fun. Although times weren't necessarily always fun.
Okay.
My parents divorced when I was 6 years old. And, as a child, you don't understand all of what that is.
Right.
But that word begins to resonate in your mind when you hear adults around you talking about it. But I will say this, and I am most grateful. My parents had the good sense and the common decency to allow us to love them both.
Yes.
That just makes the difference in a young person's life because it's disruptive enough when parents separate. But when parents use children to fight one another, it's disappointing, and truthfully, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's very unfair to children.
Yeah.
So my parents had the good sense to allow us to love them both.
I love that.
And I'm grateful for that. We lived in, we lived in several places. At the time of my parents' divorce, we lived in a 2-bedroom bungalow in the 3rd Ward District. And I remember long walks to school in the morning with my brother. And one day we decided we were going to be the first people at school. We were going to get there before everybody else. Well, you know, in those days, before school, it was a huge recess period. You played out in the yard openly. Yeah. You did that. I think we must have arrived at school before 7 o'clock that day.
Wow.
Oh, yes. We were determined we were going to be the first. And so we were.
Okay.
I went to Paul Lawrence Dunbar Elementary School. Wow. And I remember my mother coming to the school when I was in 2nd grade to teach us Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Awesome.
It was in the school that, elementary school, I think I was maybe in about, I was in 3rd grade when I was asked to read and record a little section of something about this weather vane that was on top of a building downtown. And from that time, since my teachers would single me out to speak.
Okay. So why was that?
I think it was because my mother insisted on, you know, we were living in Texas, we had those accents, of course we did. But she insisted on correct speech.
Yes.
She insisted on it. Ooh, and when she called you, you better not say, huh.
Oh. Don't say, huh.
Oh, no, honey, it was like the wrath of God was going to descend upon you if you said, huh, that was so disrespectful, you didn't do that. Yeah, my mother insisted upon that. As a little girl, I used to sing my brother and sister to sleep, singing sophisticated jazz songs.
Oh.
The tables are empty. Imagine it, 5 years old.
Right.
The dance floor's deserted. You've played the same love song. It's the 10th time you've heard it. 5 years old singing that song.
Wow. Did they appreciate that?
Yeah, they did.
I'm sure.
They did.
I'm sure they did.
There was a tall chinaberry tree in our backyard. So children will do things. You know, you have to watch children.
Yes, you do.
We would do things. Oh, Lord, would we do things. So, you know, there was this chinaberry tree, and I was determined to go to the very top of the tree. And I was up there climbing and climbing and climbing. And my sister and brother were down there looking up. They said, come down, come down. And I just kept going. Phylicia, you better come down. And I just kept going. You're going to be the first one to die because you ain't scared of nothing.
Oh, my goodness.
I made a... The things we did.
Oh, my goodness.
We created an ice skating rink by taking Johnson & Johnson baby powder and spreading it all over the floor.
In the house?
Yes, child, in the house, of course.
Oh,
and then we put our socks on and we would skate across the floor. My mother never punished us for stuff like that.
Wow. Wow.
She didn't. Most parents would get pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
You messed up my floor, blah, 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 blah. But she understood that we were using creativity. And so she just got and said, you know, that's really not ice. And
That's what she would say. She wouldn't fuss.
no, she would deal with us like that. And then there was a time I created an alarm system. There was there was a screened-in porch outside our bedroom window, and I got this great idea that if I took cornflakes and sprinkled it all over the floor of the porch,
oh my goodness,
that if a burglar came, I would hear the crunch.
That was wise. That was wise.
That was logic.
It was logic, yeah.
But the burglar didn't come. The rain did.
Oh. So that was a little messy.
We would do stuff. We would do things. But while we were doing those things, my mother was teaching us music.
Awesome.
And she was teaching us choral speech. Mm-hmm. I think I was 6 years old when my mother called all of our friends in from the neighborhood. It was just after Easter, and we had these, you know, those candied Easter eggs that people used to sell. Okay. Mm-hmm. So she used the candied Easter egg to demonstrate note value.
Wow.
She said, okay, we're going to say that we're in 4/4 time. And she explained that that meant 4 beats to a measure.
Mm-hmm.
And she explained that each whole note would get the full 4 beats. And she used the Easter egg to demonstrate that. She said, this is a whole note, and it's going to get 4 beats. Then she divided it in half. And she said, now we have 2 half notes, mm-hmm. and each will get 2 beats. She proceeded to divide that egg into 16 parts,
wow.
explaining it all the way down. It was my first lesson in fractions,
wow.
and I never forgot it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Children will learn mm-hmm. if they are taught.
Right.
And if they are taught with love.
That's right. That's awesome. Awesome. You have to share a beautiful story that when you first realized that you were beautiful, and I think it was when you were speaking. It was something you had to do at school, am I right? Mm-hmm. So I just think it's because we think you're just absolutely beautiful, but when you first discovered that you were beautiful, when was that?
Truthfully, when I discovered I was beautiful, mm-hmm. that I was beautiful.
That you were, okay.
It was after that.
It was after that.
That was when I became a mother.
Oh.
That was when I felt really beautiful.
Awesome. Well, tell the
But when I
the
was
kid
11 years old, okay, so, you know. And I know the young ladies in the house will understand and appreciate what I'm about to say. You know, we carry all kinds of little feelings about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And normally these feelings are based on things outside of ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
Based on our perceptions of how other people are perceiving us. Mm-hmm. So I was really skinny. I was so skinny. Child. They called me Boniface. I was so skinny.
They called you what?
Boniface.
Boniface.
Yeah, they did.
What is that?
It hurt my feelings.
I don't even know what a Boniface is.
Boniface, okay? So I was so skinny that if I walked down the street and I heard somebody laughing, I knew they were laughing at me.
Aww.
I mean, you know, this is how a young mind can be when you're looking outside of yourself for something. Okay. But I had this voice, as I told you about, and I was selected to represent my school in a citywide audition to see who would read the libretto from the 3 musicians of Bremen.
Wow.
That's how it started.
Okay.
And every morning before class and every afternoon after class, there were 3 teachers who drilled me over and over and over again in reading this libretto. And they would say, sound your T's. Let the M's be heard. Let's hear that S. Lift the ends of those sentences. Let's hear a smile in that, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the time came for that audition. We had to go down to the school board. And I was dressed in a nice little dress and everything. My hair was all combed. That was unusual because I was a wild little child. I was throwing mud pies. I was climbing trees. I didn't care about all that other stuff.
Wow.
But after the audition, the teachers came and they said, well, they don't want you to read the libretto. They want you to be the mistress of ceremonies for the entire program.
Wow.
And this entire program was a musical festival of all of the elementary schools in the city of Houston. Mm-hmm. That meant more rehearsal. I thought I was never going to see the playground again. Well, when the time came for that very special evening, I was taken on a shopping trip. And my father had provided what was needed for me to get this beautiful little yellow dress with a white pinafore, with a big bow in the back, and little frills up in here. I had white socks with ruffles on them and white shoes with tassels on them. And I had a crown, a little tiara of flowers, and my hair was styled in Shirley Temple curls.
You were cute.
I was cute,
You were real
child.
cute.
I was super
You were
cute.
cute.
Oh, no question. And I had the script for what I was supposed to say, and this was being held in the largest hall in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
It was the Houston Coliseum at that time. It was so big, that's where the Barnum and Bailey Circus was held.
Wow.
That's where the rodeo was held. And this is where we were having our music festival. Well, I had never stood in a spotlight before. And I held the script, and I was to go and stand. I knew when I was supposed to go and stand at this microphone, and I looked up, and there was this spotlight, and it was so bright, I couldn't see anything in that hall but that light. So I stood and I talked to the light. I didn't need the script because we'd rehearsed it so much. I knew what I was supposed to say. So I just talked to the light. All night long, I talked to the light. And when the program was over and mothers were coming to retrieve their children, I heard one mother say to another, "Oh, there she is. There's the little girl who spoke so beautifully. Isn't she beautiful?" And when I heard that, I thought, when I grow up, I'm going to be an actress and play in the light and be beautiful all the time. But what I didn't understand and wouldn't articulate for many, 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 many years was the beauty that I had experienced, and I really did feel beautiful talking to the light.
Right.
It didn't have anything to do with what I was wearing or what I looked like or how my hair was styled. I was communicating from my heart. Communication from the heart. That's what's beautiful.
Right. Awesome. I love that story. That's beautiful. And also, you weren't looking at the faces of the people.
They were there.
Right, but you didn't see them.
I saw the light.
You saw the light.
See, it's important to remember the light.
Remember the light. I love that.
Remember the light.
I love that. So that is, okay, so that's when you decided at that point that you wanted to be an actress?
That's when I decided at that point I wanted to be an actress, and life would continue. When I was 13 years old, in the thick of junior high school, my mother walked in the house one day and she said, "That's it, I've had it, it's enough. We are moving." And we just looked at it because we moved all the time, it seemed to me. I said, "Okay, Mama, where are we going this time?" She said, "We're moving to Mexico City."
Wow. And that's, see, on the Cosby Show, you would speak some beautiful Spanish.
That was why.
And that was why. You're like, wow.
I was so unnerved. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Why were we going to move to Mexico City? We don't know nobody down there. My mother, not only were we moving to Mexico City, we were going on a bus. We were going on the Greyhound bus so we could get a feel for the country. And I decided on that very night, my poor father, he was driving us to the station where we were to meet our mother. He said, "She's done it this time." Oh, she's gone all the way crazy this time. She's just gone crazy this time. We got to that station and said goodbye to my father and got on that bus, and I said, "I'm going to make her pay. I'm going to starve myself to death. She'll be sorry when I die on this bus."
Oh, my goodness.
So dramatic. Well, I want you to know my hunger strike lasted all the way to San Antonio. And it was a miraculous time.
Was it?
Well, imagine. I was born and was growing up in Houston, Texas during a time of legal segregation. And during those years, I also traveled to Louisiana and to my mother's birthplace in South Carolina. And even though our community was like this, close, tight-knit, warm, still, you know, that's limitation.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I was living in an international city.
Right.
With different sounds and different smells and different people. And my mother didn't waste any time in enrolling us in schools. My mother put me in the American school and my sister in the Pan-American workshop. And those schools, Mexico City is huge. And we didn't speak a word of Spanish.
Wow.
And we didn't know anything about the city, where anything was. And yet here we were. I was 13 and my sister was 11. And we were traveling in public transportation by ourselves, going to schools far distances from where we lived.
Wow.
We would, it was, when I think about it now, it's like, wow, we did that.
You did that.
We did that. We really did do that. And then finally, my mother transferred me to my sister's school. Living in a different country, living in a different culture, and really beginning to learn about Mexican culture was exciting. But for me, it was a very lonely time because I didn't have any friends. My sister at least had a friend in her class, and there I was being transferred to her school, and they didn't even have an 8th grade. So I was put in the 9th grade, and the core curriculum was being taught in Spanish, and I didn't speak Spanish.
Wow.
Grammar, math, science taught in Spanish. And I had been a straight A student in an academically accelerated program. You had to place on the IQ test at a certain level to be in that program. I was in that program. I was a straight A student for the full semester. And here I sat in a classroom not understanding a word that was said. And I want you to know what that's like before people start going around bashing young people who come to this country. And who don't know this language.
Right.
What happens is people begin to think that you don't think because you don't speak the language.
Right.
People begin to think that you are stupid. And pretty soon you can start thinking that about yourself. It is a very painful and unnecessary experience, except that I can sit here and tell you about it now,
Right.
so that you can have this understanding. We human beings, we can do so much more for each other, and in doing more for each other, we would do so much more for ourselves.
That's right. Awesome. How long did you stay in Mexico City? How long were you there?
We were there for a semester.
Okay. Wow. You were there for just a semester. And
Well, we were supposed to stay longer, but we missed our father very much.
okay.
And their semesters were a little bit different from ours, and they had this great big break after Christmas. And so we were going to go back to Houston, and we were going to be there for a couple of weeks. We were going to see our dad, and we were supposed to come back. And my father took one look at us, he said, and he took us and enrolled us back in school.
So what, you learned Spanish that quickly, though?
What happens is, and I met a lot of American children who were there. They said, you will know that you're learning the language when you begin to dream in it.
Wow.
And before we left to return home for what we thought was going to be 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I had begun dreaming in the language.
Wow. Wow.
You hear it every day.
You heard it. It was just.
It's all around you. You hear it every day. And the young people there, oh God, there were such great young people there. They were so excited to meet somebody from America and to try to speak English and to communicate, you know. And we'd play in the streets for hours, not speaking the same language, but children would play in the streets together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah, so then when I came back, sitting in the classroom, right, for a full semester with core curriculum taught in a language that I did not understand.
Right.
When I came back to America after 4 months of not reading and writing and listening to a foreign language, I had almost forgotten how to read.
Wow.
And I was the best reader in the class.
Wow.
I'm just letting you know what it's like. So that first semester back in school, I'd say the first marking period was a bit of a struggle for me, but then it began to turn around.
Okay.
It began to turn around. And I realized that I had learned things I didn't know I was learning.
Wow. Wow.
That's the only way I can explain it.
Right. That's awesome.
And when the 9th grade came around, there I was on the honor roll again with straight A's, and had begun to study Spanish formally.
Okay.
And because I had spent that time there, I had the sound of it and the sense and the understanding of it, and I learned everything very quickly.
Wow.
And could conjugate like nobody's business.
Conjugate those verbs. I love that. All right, we're going to skip to college. You went to Howard University, HBC, any HBCU grads? All right. I went to Hampton. Now, was that a thing? Because it's a thing now, you know, Howard and Hampton.
Child, please.
Was that a thing? Now, what's that child, please, mean?
It's a thing if you're in one city and going to one high school and somebody's going to another.
That's true.
You know, come on, people gonna do that.
Well, it's still a thing.
But you know, but when it's done, when it's all said and done,
Right.
you realize that this is a network.
That's right.
You realize this
That's
is a
right.
community of experience.
That's right.
You know.
So, yeah.
And so whatever that rivalry was, that
Yeah.
was healthy and that was good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Back in those days, we weren't hurting each other about it.
No. Well, we're not doing that now.
No, we're not doing
No.
that now.
No, we're not. So how was that experience being at an HBCU? Because I loved my HBCU experience.
Well, I went to black schools all my life.
Okay. Okay. So you're like,
Elementary all the way through.
this is what you do.
Texas Southern University was in the heart of my community where I
Okay.
grew up. Matter of fact, I went to university before I went to school because I was in the nursery school there. That's what I'm trying to say. So it was quite an experience.
Right.
The life of it all.
Yeah. What was your major? Were you drama?
Yeah, of course.
Drama?
Yes. My father told me, if this is what you want to do,
Right.
and you really are serious about it, there's only one place for you to go.
Right.
And that's Howard University. And he said Howard University has Howard University players. And then he pulled out articles to show me where they'd been sponsored by the State Department, had toured Ireland and England and all over Europe. He said, this is where you want to go.
Right.
And he was right.
Awesome.
He was right. The experience was incredible. I had the most wonderful instructors, not only in theater, but in psychology, in French, in English, in philosophy, in literature. I was among very bright people.
Yeah.
It was electric.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it
It was 4 years of awesome.
It is.
And romance.
And romance.
Oh, come on, you know you got to have a little romance.
Well, yeah. That's why I met my husband at college.
See what I'm saying?
So awesome. Romance. And, of course, you were a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority at Howard University.
Yeah, I determined that I would have a full college life. You see, because when you're in a theater program, and this is something that people really don't understand about arts majors, it's like being a Spartan. You are training like a Trojan.
Wow.
People don't understand that. People think we just wake up in the morning and do what we do. They do. They think we just wake up in the morning and do what we do. Nothing could be further from the truth. I learned within the first 2 weeks that there were going to be lots of football games and parties and cabarets that I was never going to see.
Wow.
Because I was going to be in that department, building a set, making a costume, learning some lines, moving stuff around, doing whatever needed to be done after class.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the way it was for 4 years. And I determined, okay, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to have some college life too.
Okay.
So I pledged.
Yay. I love that. All right, so once you graduated, you went into theater, correct? Is that the first thing you did right after school?
Well, I was in theater the whole time I was in school because that's what I was majoring in, so that's what you do. You train to go to where isn't that what you do?
Yeah.
You train so that's what I did. I actually did it before I graduated.
Right.
After my sophomore year, I had an opportunity to go to New York and to spend the summer working with the Negro Ensemble Company.
Right, okay.
It was the bee's knees.
Awesome.
It was this company, Moses Gunn, Francis Foster, Clarice Taylor, Rosalind Cash, Hattie Winston, David Downing, all these people, these fabulous actors. And what was really significant about this was just the year before, at the end of my freshman year, we had a speech teacher, Mrs. McMichael. She was a well-intentioned Irish lady. And one day, she addressed us, who were working so hard in her class, to say, you know, you really should think of another vocation.
Wow.
There's no room for the Negro in the theater. She was serious. She thought she was helping us by telling us there was no room. But when I went that summer, I saw, that lady's just wrong, just mistaken. There's room, honey. There's room for me and a whole lot of other people.
Right. Yes.
It was quite the experience. My mother insisted that I go against my father's wishes. They often had different points of view. But my father supported it. And I went and I stayed at the Barbizon Hotel for Women, which doesn't exist anymore. And every day I was in the theater. And every night I was in the theater watching.
Wow.
They had 2 plays in repertory. And I sat there every single night watching that company of actors who were so great. And it was, all of this was shaping my sensibilities. And I knew what it was I would do when I finished my college studies. I knew that I had to come to New York. So that's what I did. And found myself at the YWCA without a job and nothing else. Wow. I sat on the edge of that bed and I cried for 30 minutes, and then I said, this is getting me nowhere fast. So I made a phone call and I got a job, a temporary job in an office. And then with that followed some calls to work in little small community theaters. And I did that. And after about, I guess it was about 6 or 7 months of that, I had an audition for a bus and truck company to be young, gifted, and black. And I was accepted. And that was how I got my equity card. And I was touring the country with this company of actors, one of whom smoked cigars. And I had to kiss him every night. And he was disrespectful. But I fixed him.
Okay.
sit silently and don't do nothing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
What'd you
This
do?
man, well, you know,
What'd you do?
we were supposed to be doing a stage kiss, but he had taken a fancy to me, so he decided he's going to stick his tongue all down my throat. After smoking those smelly cigars. I bit him.
Oh.
And he didn't do that again. Well, you know, I had to defend myself. Come on.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't do that again because I had talked to the stage manager. I tried to be professional about it.
Right.
And he just wasn't listening. And he would just give me that little look with that little look in his eye because he knew what he was planning to do. And I said, okay.
You saw it coming.
And I bit him.
Well, you did eventually end up on Broadway.
Eventually, yes.
I have to tell a story. I think it was 77, my mom took me to a play on Broadway. It was The Wiz. And Phylicia Rashad was a munchkin.
Yep.
And was also a field mice.
Yep.
And I still have the program. And I was so excited. I was 7 years old, and my parents took me to see this, and right here is your name, and I would love for you to sign this later. But look at here, Phylicia Rashad, field mice.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find this. I'm going to show you where it was a munchkin. Oh, they don't have that picture.
They don't have it in there? I was trying to find you.
But this was exciting for you. This must have been very exciting.
Oh, my
That's
goodness.
the show that changed the Broadway musical.
This one, yes.
That show did.
It was
the first.
amazing.
It was the first Broadway musical in which the entire chorus was made up of concert dancers.
Oh, wow.
It was the first Broadway musical with that popular music in it. It was the first Broadway musical with pit singers.
Wow. Wow.
It changed American musical theater. And it won 7 Tony Awards.
Wow, yes. Amazing. Amazing. I was 7, but I still remember how in awe I was of everything. It was just like, oh my goodness, that was really awesome.
It's pretty magical.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to skip to Cosby Show because we have to talk about your iconic character of Claire Huxtable.
Yes.
We absolutely, just like one of us said, it's like growing up. My mom is here tonight, but she was compared to you a lot, mothers in. I just felt like we just grew up with you as like our TV mom.
Yeah, well, it's easy when you're scripted.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, how much of Claire was Phylicia?
Okay, so my best friend from college came to a taping and she said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, taking these people's money for being yourself.
Ah.
Well, I understood her.
Okay. Yeah.
I understood her.
You understood?
She's an educated woman. She was married to a man who celebrated her intellect.
Yes.
She had 5 children who were crazy. And she loved them all.
Yes.
She was a woman who was possessed of a certain kind of calm.
Yes.
That kind of anchored the family.
Yeah.
And she delighted in her husband.
Yes.
Foolish things he would do, she had no problem laughing at him because she just thought he was just wonderful.
Yes.
And I liked that. I loved that work because so much of it was rooted in truth. There was a psychologist, Alvin Poussant, who was engaged specifically to read each and every script to make sure there were no subtle messages that were inaccurate. I mean, seriously.
That's good. That's awesome.
There was so much intelligence in the intention behind that show. The music, the art you saw on the walls.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
The way the characters dressed. If you were to go back and you look at it right now, it doesn't look like it couldn't be happening today. Right?
Right.
It's like timeless in its look.
Yes.
Also, there wasn't slang used in the dialogue because that would relegate it to a certain time period.
Right. Wow.
And this was not to be like that. This was something to give to people, for people to have throughout generations. That was the thought behind it.
Awesome.
It was also the thought behind it to show and demonstrate that people are much more alike than we could ever be different.
That's right.
And one of the greatest things that ever happened as a result of that show happened the day I met Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
And he thanked me. He said, I watched your show from Robben's Island.
Wow.
He said, I watched it with my guard. It softened him.
Wow. That speaks volumes, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the power of a good intention.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Write that one down. I love that. I love that. Okay, so did you know when you auditioned and you read the script, did you know it was going to be this impactful and this iconic of a, did you have any idea that you were just, no?
No.
Yeah.
No, none of us were thinking like that. We were having fun.
Yeah.
We loved to come to work every day. Every day was an adventure.
Yeah.
And we were happy to be together. And I think it was with the airing of the first show, my sister called me to say that someone had called her to say that she heard her whole building laughing.
Wow. Yeah.
They meaning the network, nobody thought it would be what it became.
Yeah.
Proof of that was we started out with the most antiquated equipment that they had. And then the president of the network came to a taping, and when he saw firsthand, because when you're up in a tier like this, you're not
Right. Looking down, yeah.
you're not there. But when he came and he saw what we were working with,
Yeah.
he said, I will buy the cameras myself.
Wow.
And that forced the network to do what it should have done from the beginning for its #1 show that moved it from #3 to #1.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was a time you just did not call anybody. 8 o'clock Thursday night, you done call nobody. Don't interrupt. Yeah, it was amazing. And there was a show where the whole family could sit and watch. The parents had something they could relate to and laugh with. The kids, we could relate. What was your favorite episode?
I'm asked that so many times, and I can't tell you. And especially now when, let's say, in the evening when I have nothing to do, if I'm flipping channels and there it is, and I watch episodes that I had forgotten about.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, gee, that was good.
I love that.
We had favorite episode. I really don't know. Because it was so...
He had so many good ones.
They were so good. And then when the guest artists started, I mean, come on, Lena Horne.
Oh, my goodness. Played your dad.
Joe Williams is my father.
Yes.
Oh.
And you got to sing with them.
Stevie Wonder.
Yes.
And then that night, all of the Latin greats were playing, and the jazz greats were playing another night, and Nancy Wilson was on the show.
Yes.
Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
Elaine Stritch.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was, I can't just pinpoint one. I really... That's the one everybody
Yeah,
likes.
or the shirt one. When she made that shirt, the Gordon Gartrell, I still laugh at Gordon Gartrell. That shirt was a mess.
That shirt was pathetic.
That one was hilarious. Okay. But the show, like you said, it was just iconic, and the legacy, you know, of the show now. I mean, it's still.
It's a legacy.
Yeah.
And it's a legacy that people shouldn't let go of.
That's right. To get a little bit more personal, is there a time where you ever had a moment when you questioned your own strength? Because Claire was strong, it seemed like almost all the time. But was there a time when you questioned your strength and you're like, you know, maybe I'm not feeling quite strong right here?
Oh, yeah. When I was a munchkin. You know, there seemed to be like some kind of formula. It's like, okay. So you do all this work in these little theater companies and you get a Broadway show. And then from a Broadway show, you're supposed to do a cabaret. And from that cabaret, somebody's supposed to see you. And when they see you, they're supposed to put you in something. And that's supposed to be the thing, the way it happens. And that didn't happen for me. And I'll get really personal right now and tell you that in my first marriage, one of the most hurtful things that ever happened to me was when my then husband looked at me and said, "Why don't you face it? You're just second string." Well, that's when I know he would be my ex-husband. Yeah. We didn't have to have no knockdown, drag-out fight, none of that.
Right.
Those words were enough to let me know, I can't live with you.
Right. Wow.
Life's journey is what it is for each of us. And I'm saying this to young hopefuls in the arts, whether it's music or theater or film or television or broadcast or whatever it is. Your journey is your journey. And don't compare it to someone else's, and don't think that something has to happen for you the way it happened for somebody else or the way you think it happened for somebody else. You give yourself completely to what you're doing because it's in you to do.
Yes.
You give yourself completely to your studies as a student because it's in you to do. The measure of excellence is judged by your commitment to your work. That's the measure of excellence. So, you know, I felt, you know, that for a while, that, and then when Dreamgirls came and I was in Dreamgirls, it was kind of the same thing. But something else had happened then, and I started this period of very serious introspection. I started practicing meditation. And meditation, for those of you who may not know or understand it, we meditate all the time. We just don't call it that. Meditation is the practice of focusing the mind. So when someone is making a most delicious cake and they're paying close attention to what they're doing, when someone's preparing a Thanksgiving meal and they're paying very close attention to what they're doing, when someone is changing a baby's diaper and they're paying very close attention to what they're doing, that's meditation. That's focusing the mind. Now I had begun the practice of focusing the mind on my inner self. And with that came came another sense of priorities. Now I began to understand that if every time before I performed, I took a moment and I paused and I offered what I was about to do to the source of creativity, that the work that I was about to do became an offering. It changed the way I worked. It changed the way I felt about my work. And it changed the way audiences received it. Because now it was service. That was the best.
Wow. Wow, okay, well, we're going to transition into our question and answer period. So did they already get cards, or did they already pass out cards? Do people have questions? Okay. And while we're waiting on those, I do want to ask you, because you've played several roles, what is your favorite role that you've played? Was it Claire Huxtable?
I liked Claire Huxtable. And I think were it not for Claire Huxtable, there are a lot of things I probably wouldn't have done. I can say that with certainty.
Yeah.
But there was other work to do.
Yeah.
And truthfully speaking, after Claire Huxtable, I couldn't get a job. Because people said that's who she is.
Right, right.
When I say people, I'm talking about casting directors in Hollywood. But it was very interesting. That was not the case in theater.
Right.
Because in theater, we know that an actor can be anything.
Right.
But that's not always understood so well in other places. So for a year, at the end of the Cosby Show, I didn't work anywhere.
Wow.
They were doing Waiting to Exhale. I was told, the director said, I don't even want to see her.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and it was like that a lot because that was their perception.
Right.
It would be my work in theater that would change that perception.
Wow.
And I was happy to come back and work in theater. I remember sitting in the audience on the opening night of Fences.
Yes.
With James Earl Jones. I was looking at that work on the stage and I wondered, am I ever going to be able to do that? That caliber of work on stage. Years passed and I was Aunt Esther in August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean.
Wow.
And that was certainly one of the most meaningful characters. For me, that was another turn.
Right.
I thought maybe I wouldn't do any more work after that because I thought, what else could I do? I mean, she was 287 years old. She was 287 years old in memory because she carried the memory of all the souls that had been carried across the Middle Passage, even the ones that didn't make it. She didn't just carry them inside herself. If you ever go to the National Museum of African American Culture and History, the costume is in the museum.
Wow.
And if you look at it very carefully, you will notice that there are no matching buttons, even though the patterns are symmetrical. In the ruffles of her skirt, there are different pieces of fabric. She's wearing bits of clothing from all the people.
Wow.
She wore her memories. She lived her memories. She carried her memories. And her purpose was to connect people to that part of themselves that's connected to what was, what is, and what will be. And for that, they had to go to the City of Bones. It was a spiritual journey. I thought, this is like Kashmir Shaivism or something. It was. It's spiritual awakening. That's what she was. That's why she lived. That's what she carried, and that's what she had to offer people. Spiritual awakening that let them know they come from light. They are light. And you have a duty to that light.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It was awesome. He wrote it.
All right, are we ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and yield to Kimberly. Go ahead.
Okay, our first audience question is, recently you took the director's seat. Did you always know that you would eventually transition into directing?
No, I did not. It was the farthest thing from my mind. And then one day I got a call from Constanza Romero, who was August Wilson's wife. And she informed me that the Seattle Repertory Company was going to do a production of Gem of the Ocean, which we had already done on Broadway. It was the one play that August had written that had not been produced there, and that was the city where they lived. And she asked if I would direct it. And I was in shock. But I did.
Awesome.
That's how it started.
Thank you.
So, our next question, it says you will make your historic Broadway directorial debut in 2020 with the production of Blue. You once starred in that show. How do you think it will be different directing a show that you once starred in?
Oh, it'll be very different. You know, if you take a play and you change all the cast members, you get a different play. Yeah, just changing the cast members, what you know. But this play is now coming almost 20 years later. And the playwright wants to examine certain relationships a little more. And there's the character of Samuel, the husband, that I think needs to be drawn out a little bit more. It'll be different. It'll be his play, but it's like, how many productions of Romeo and Juliet could you see? And they're all different.
That's right.
It's like that.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Was in performance at Lincoln Center in Ed Bullen's The Duplex. And I was standing in the wings watching the scene, as I had done every night. And I was so engrossed in the scene, I forgot to come into the scene. I was just watching it in just utter amazement, fascination. And I forgot to enter. And then I noticed that the dialogue was beginning to sound strange. And people were looking around us, oh, I'm supposed to go out. And then
You're observing.
I was observing, and another time at Lincoln Center in Cymbeline, I was the queen.
Yes.
Well, a cast member had made a sweet potato pie.
Ooh.
And he insisted that I have some of this sweet potato pie. And I had a nice little break between things. Okay, I'm gonna have some of this sweet potato pie. And I ate that sweet potato pie, and I got very, a little tired.
Tired.
So I took my crown off and I put it on the, and I just, I had time. And then I heard, those are the trumpets announcing the entrance of the queen, and she was in her dressing room asleep on her couch. I went tearing around that theater. I forgot my crown. I went tearing around that theater, and it's big.
Right.
All backstage, running through the tunnels. Yeah, you had to run through the tunnels to get to the backstage area, to go upstage, to come downstage. And I walked in the scene like nothing had happened.
Of course. Of course you did.
Oh my God, we laughed about that for weeks. So unprofessional.
That was some good pie. That must have been some really good pie. Okay.
It was good.
So our next question is, what inspires you to develop your skills and talent without getting comfortable or stuck in your past accomplishments?
You know what? I always study. I was always studying something. I was in voice class, was in dance class. Even while I was in Broadway productions, in theatrical productions, I was always studying. And theater artists know that we have to continue to study.
Right.
Simple as that.
We're going to have 2 more questions from this side and 2 more from that side. So I'll start with my first question. What is your first love, directing, acting, or theater?
Directing, acting, or theater? Okay. Well, they're all together, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
My first love is theater.
Yeah.
I love theater, and I love the disciplines of theater. And what I love most about theater is that theater is community. Oftentimes when the audience comes and they become engrossed in what they see, what isn't considered is the design team behind the scenes that created what you see in lighting, created what you see in costuming, created what you see in the way of scenic design. There's not the understanding that there's an entire administration behind the production that keeps everything moving, coordinated. There's so many facets to theater that just aren't readily understood. But if you take one thing away, you're really missing. It takes a village, and the village is big.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
So some have seen and called the new TV show Blackish, and they compare it to being the modern day version of the Cosby Show.
Isn't that unfortunate?
I don't even need to ask the rest of the question. Next question.
What's the question?
Oh,
What's the question?
The question was, have you seen the show and do you agree with the comparison?
yes.
Do you agree with the comparison? I mean, you're the audience. Do you agree with the comparison?
It's different shows.
It's a different show.
It's a different show.
It's a different show.
Okay, our next question is, what was the most difficult decision you've made in your career, and how did you feel secure in that decision?
So there's a thought among theater artists. If you have a job, you don't leave that job without having another one to go to. So I was an understudy in Dreamgirls. I understudied Dina Jones. And I had gone on numerous times without notice. But a good understudy is always prepared.
Right.
And when it came time to cast the LA and touring company, let me just preface this with this. Usually in a production, an understudy rehearsal takes place on one day. It's designated like on a Thursday. You have that afternoon period from 1 to 5, and that's your understudy rehearsal period. In Dreamgirls, we had understudy rehearsal on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I was working 10 out of 12 hours, if you put that together with performance at night, almost 6 days a week. And I was a single parent with an 8-year-old son. 8 years old, when school becomes most difficult. I would say goodbye to my son in the morning, and when I saw him again, he was asleep in his bed at night. And I wasn't allowed to bring him to the theater as I had been during The Wiz. All right, you got that? Okay, so here I am working like this, and the director walks in the theater for an understudy rehearsal, and he said, "Who's Dina today?" And he pointed to this actress that he had just hired as a second understudy who had never worked in the understudy rehearsals. He said, you be Dina today. It's understudy rehearsal. Understudy's got to have a chance. But she was changing leotards with every number. And I realized this wasn't an understudy rehearsal for her. This was an audition. And that at the end of the rehearsal, he said that she would perform the role that night. So I called my mother, as I would often do, and she said, "Well, your course of action is very clear. You have to give your notice." I'm a single parent with an 8-year-old son. I said, "Mommy, I don't have another job right now to go to." She said, "That's right, and if you don't give your notice, you may never have another job." So I said, "Okay." So I went to the stage manager. I said, "Okay, so you know what? I'm going to give my notice." "Well, I have to talk to Michael. I have to talk to Michael." That's the director. I said, "You talk to Michael. I'm not asking your permission. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do, okay?" And within 5 minutes, I was being called up on the stage. And I was heading up the stairs, and I stopped, and I began to pray. And I begged God to sit on my tongue.
Sit on it.
I literally begged God to sit on my tongue so that everything I said would be the truth, absent of anger and arrogance. That was my prayer.
That's good. That's good.
And I went up there, and the director said, "Well, I understand that you're leaving." I said, "Yeah, it's time for me to go." He said, "But you can't go." I said, "Well, I can." He said, "But we need you." I said, "No, you don't." He said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Well, whether you need me or not, that's not in question here." I said, "I am not an understudy. I'm a leading lady, and it's time for me to realize myself in my profession." And I hadn't planned to say any of that. And he looked at me and he said, "You're right. Good luck."
Wow.
I didn't have a job to go to. I ended up on unemployment. It was a tough time financially, but I saw my son after school every day. I was walking in the park with him one day, and I saw the light filtering through the trees and squirrels running all over the place and people laughing and having fun. And I looked at him because I was always working in the theater day and night. And I said, "Has this been going on all the time?" And he looked up at me with his little sweet face. He said, "Yeah, Mama, it has."
Aww.
I was on unemployment for the longest time, it seemed. And I didn't tell my father. I was determined I wasn't telling my father, because I knew if I told my father, he would want to help me.
Right.
And I had just read this autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, and he said, if you could face a difficult time and not complain about it, it could turn around.
Wow.
And I took that to heart. So I went through those months until one day I stood in that line and I said to myself, looking around, okay, this enough of this. And I closed my eyes and I said, I swear by the presence of God within me, this is my last day in this unemployment line. And it was. I was casting a soap opera the next day. Yeah. Wow. So that's it. Y'all know me now. And it's been wonderful sharing this evening with you and meeting all of you. And I do mean it sincerely when I say that I rejoice in this community. This is a beautiful community. And it's done my heart good to see it. And I thank you so much, Steward Speakers, for bringing me here. I thank the sponsors for supporting this event, and I thank you all for coming, and I thank you for your kind attention to my tale.
We thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Phylicia Rashad.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so very much.